I'm here today and I'm going live and I'm gonna do an interview with Edward Brown and we're gonna discuss about situations in Fort Worth, well, Tarrant County courts.
Just make sure it looks good. Yep.
Go ahead, sit down.
Yep.
All right. So today, I'm gonna introduce y'all to Edward Brown, and he's a real good reporter. And I found him. Well, I found it's called the Fort Worth Weekly. It's at my corner store where I cop watch the police and things in my neighborhood, and I started reading it, and I was like, see, I'm not the only one, and now I get to interview the reporter. So
My honor.
go ahead and
A
tell
little
me.
bit about myself. So I am a staff writer for the Fourth Weekly newspaper here in Fort Worth. I've been reporting for them for around a dozen years, around 12 years. I've won a national award, Lone Star Press Club Awards, First Amendment Award last year. Today I'm going to find out if I'm a winner of the Diamond Journalism Award. That'll get announced today, so fingers crossed. But I've won several journalism awards, Reader's Choice for Best Journalist in 2000, 2001. So I focus on the kind of stuff that Manuel Mata is focused on, which is government transparency, government corruption, police violence, all those kind of things. So we have that in common. He does it in his own way, and I do it my own way, but it overlaps.
Yeah, yours is more professional, and I appreciate the few times that you did interview me, and it gave me an opportunity to not only speak about what's going on, it's like to understand how to like properly present myself. You know what I'm saying? And I do appreciate that, because I watch a lot of interviews you've been doing. So they do have a YouTube channel too, and y'all can go check them out on Fort Worth Weekly on YouTube. So if y'all want to know what's going on in Fort Worth with judges, crooked politicians, like you said it's what 12 years. So no.
Yeah.
And today we're really gonna actually get down to family courts, and specifically the ones here in Fort Worth. And well, I'm gonna let you explain the court thing. So go ahead.
Yeah. So we're going to talk today about the 231st, which is a district court, family court in Tarrant County. I wanted to just kind of start with the big picture of the family court system. We'll talk about this in other episodes because there's a lot to dig into.
Yeah.
This is a system that all courts profit off defendants. We know in the criminal court system, it only exists because they need to go out over police, poor communities and bring people in to keep everything fueled, keep the jails fueled and all that kind of stuff. And that's horrible. But the family court system is, I would say, particularly nefarious because what they use children as something to negotiate with parents and force them to engage in this system. It's a system that's fueled on perjury. So, one partner, one ex-spouse or current spouse can go into the courts and make pretty much any allegation they want. And if it weren't for the condoning of perjury, the family court system wouldn't be able to fund itself. So it's funded largely based on false allegations. These are allegations that can take a parent who's been loving and supportive of their kids, and all of a sudden they find themselves in a situation where they have a temporary restraining order placed on them. They can't see their children. And of course, when you're in that situation, you'll do anything to see your kids, right?
Yeah.
And so they'll take out loans, they'll try to find attorneys just for this basic human right of being a parent, which I believe is a God-given right, and it's not something that the government should intrude on. But this whole system is based on the idea that they can turn your child into a commodity And once you're in that system, they can divide up your assets, and they may do that in a way that favors your ex if they have the right law firm. And it's important to know that these are the law firms that fund the campaigns of the judges. So when you go into a courtroom, a family court in particular, you don't realize that a lot of these decisions have been made ahead of time. And it really doesn't matter what evidence you produce. If the judge has favor with opposing counsel or has personal connections with your ex, as we'll talk about, you can lose out. And you not only lose your livelihood, you lose your sanity because it's very time consuming being in this system. You'll lose access to your children, and there's not a lot of recourse, So, I mean, that's my summary of the family court system. It's incredibly nefarious, and it's just based on the idea that that children are an object that they can use to barter with. So the 231st is headed by Jesse Navarez and Associate Judge Kevin Schmid. And I wanted to talk about some cases that we've reported on and some cases that I'm currently investigating. And then I'll end today by talking about my personal experience in the 231st. So there's a mother that we've written about. Her name is Becca Montgomery. And she had a small victory yesterday. We were very happy to see that she's going to see her son for the first time in several months. And backing up, into this case, because it's pretty mind-blowing. The weekly's reported on this. This all started with her ex-husband saying that their son wasn't making good enough grades. It wasn't that he was failing. He was just not making the kind of grades. And that was used as the basis for this litigation. And keep in mind, when children are thrown into this system, it can be very stressful, and that can be the cause of children, not doing well in school because mom and dad are fighting, right? And if this were a healthy system, they would bring the parents together and they would say, listen, you're both parents of this child. We're not going to take away either of your parental rights. You need to find a way to work together. But that's not what happened. So what happened with Rebecca is they did all kinds of things to her. They issued a contempt order on her for posting on social media, and they banned her from talking about this case on social media. This is a pretty common thing that they do. There was a temporary restraining order that was issued by this court around Christmas time. So this mother had her access to her son, court-ordered visitation, and the ex-husband was able to get some photos. We don't know if they were even legitimate or not, saying that there was a cupboard that didn't have enough food in it, right? And so Rebecca has a fully stocked home, but there was, one cupboard that was empty. Maybe it was, I think she said it was a fridge that wasn't working. And the ex-husband got a photo of this and used this to go to court and say, this mother doesn't have enough food, and was able to get a restraining order. And then the father went to the home and picked up their son immediately. So she's at work. She comes home, her son's gone. She doesn't know what's happened. She calls the police. She thinks maybe there's been a kidnapping. And it turns out it was a TRO based on something that never should have gone to the lengths of eliminating her visitation rights. You think of a temporary restraining order, it needs to be pretty severe, right? Either you're actively hurting the child, you're doing something to endanger their life. But what happens is these TROs are based on hearsay, and you just have to have the right attorney go up there and make these false allegations, and the judge will sign it. It helps if your law firm, knows the judge. And from that moment on, she has not seen her child. And so she's been fighting to regain her basic visitation rights to her biological son. In April, this court issued an order that led to us publishing this story because it falsely stated that she was present in court for a hearing in April, and she was out of the States. And we even requested video surveillance of the building to see if we could see her come in just as proof. She had a lot of people sign affidavits, but she was not even in the state of Texas, and they said she was present. So falsified orders are something that we find pretty commonly in the 231st, and I had a personal experience with that we'll talk about later today. It's just a largely lawless system where they can say something and then the judge will sign it as true. Even something as blatant as saying someone was present in court when they weren't even in the area. She went pro se, and that helped her out. She was able to make filings because often, and we'll talk about this today, often what happens in the family court system is your attorney will become compromised. And it's either because the judge wants things a certain way, or the other law firm has enough sway that they can actually get your attorney to turn on you. So a lot of families and a lot of parents are finding that one of the first things they need to do to get access to their children is to get rid of their attorney, because their attorney largely in the system will turn on you pretty quickly. And that's happened to you, I know, in the criminal justice system. But she fought back. She, did her research. She had some help from some really smart friends, and she was able to recuse the judge. She recused Jesse and Kevin Schmid. I forget in which order. And because of that, and because of all the publicity that went along with her case, we believe that David Evans and Judith Wells, who kind of sat in to replace them, were kind of forced to do the right thing, which was to allow her to see her child again. So her ordeal isn't over, but we're learning that if this community bands together and they, can give good advice, we can force this system to do the right thing, even if it doesn't want to, because a lot of people are watching. So I want to congratulate Becca on seeing her son. I think she'll see him today, and her fight's not over. But any minute that these parents can regain access to their children is a victory. That's what this is all about. And, Maude, you and I talked, we're going to be doing a lot of stuff on family courts. We both agree, and it's important that people who want to join this fight understand that children have two parents, and they may not be perfect, but they need to have access to both parents, and parents should not be allowed to just make up allegations or use frivolous information like a pantry being not fully stocked in this court system. So I'm a firm believer that that there needs to be a very high bar for when you decide to limit the rights of one parent. These parents, you may not like your ex-wife, your ex-spouse, that doesn't matter. Your children need to see both their parents. And again, this court system is fueled by, it feeds off the animosity that these exes have. And instead of telling them, hey, calm down, you need to think about this, you need to do what's best for the children, it allows perjury and it codifies perjury, in court orders. So Becca had a small victory yesterday, and the family court reform community here in Tarrant County is really elated to see her reunited with her child. I got some other stories that are different. I'm going to use a pseudonym here. Sherry, it's not her real name, but she's a mother who is still caught in the 231st. Like a lot of mothers I'm talking to, she's been stuck in the system for several years. So again, if you come to this court looking for a divorce, any reasonable person would expect, a few months, at most, maybe 6 months. If it's very contentious, it can take up to a year, but it should never take several years or longer. And the only reason that that's allowed to happen is because that prolonged vexatious litigation is not only allowed, it's encouraged. So when you have a case that's allowed to go on for several years, you're allowing both sides to pour a lot of money into law firms. And that's how these law firms make their money. And an ethical judge who takes their job seriously will look at that situation and call it off very early. But that's not what happens, especially in the 231st. These cases are allowed to linger. So Sherry was married to a medical doctor. She doesn't have means for supporting herself. So when her ex lawyered up, she was instantly thrown into poverty. She was pummeled by the 231st by her well-lawyered husband at the time, and left destitute without her children. The associate judge, Kevin Schmid, issued a 6-month bench warrant for her making a comment on social media. So she's living in fear right now that she'll be jailed for 6 months if she shows up in person, because she made a comment on social media, which I think you and I would agree is something that's protected by the First Amendment.
No,
the First Amendment's something that's under attack right now, and we can see that with the county, how they've cut off comments at the DA Facebook page and social media.
Yeah.
It's just something that, and your profession as a citizen journalist, we've made a point in the weekly to make sure people understand that Manuel Mata is a citizen journalist, and there are privileges that come along with that title. False arrest by police, those are things that you should be protected for when you're doing your job in a public space. But anyway, this is a serious First Amendment issue. One attorney successfully argued in her case that because one of her children had finally stopped crying about missing her mother, it was in the best interest of the child not to see her mother again. So imagine that. You've taken the mother away from the child. The child's distraught, right? After a year, the child finally begins resuming kind of normal behavior, and you tell the judge, well, it's really in the best interest of this child not to see their mother again. They finally stop crying. Instead of asking, why have we torn this child away from her mother? Maybe that's what's causing the stress on the child. That argument was used against this mother to keep her children away from her, because it would be painful to reunite the children with their biological mother. She was forced to pay child support to her wealthy husband. Yeah.
Wait. I wouldn't stop you, but that kind of seems like the end statement that having reunite the child with the mother will cause what?
I can't quote them, but that would cause harm, more or less, to the child, to reunite them because they finally learn how to stop crying because they miss their mother.
And what gets me is the thought of them separating her from the mother, and it took, let's just say, right, for the situation, it took a whole year for the baby to stop crying about being torn away from her mom, and they use that as a reason to keep the child away. And how is that psychologically that these people are not understanding? And this is what bothers me, because the child is never considered, right? Just like I'm assuming it's a guy. He had it in his mind that he was going to say, and I bet you, like, the issue we have is the same one that I discovered in family courts. It's the lawyers that give these dudes these ideas, whether they be a male or a female. And it's troubling because the fact that family court was created to protect the best interest of the child to begin with. And not only that, to keep the family picture intact. And what I've noticed is destroyed that. And this is not even in the realm of protecting the child. And their best interest is like maybe 6 on the list of they have. And
it's way down the list.
And it's like, when you're saying this, it's like, I could imagine what that little girl must be going through, boy or girl, the child. It's like crazy that these professionals won't pause and think about that.
Think about the humanity of the situation.
Yeah.
This is a child. And just because these parents get divorced, they don't stop being parents to the children. And that's something that, because the courts won't fight for that, and because these attorneys don't care about that, we need this community to start caring about that, and they do.
Yeah.
And you do as well, and a lot of people do. A visiting retired judge, Randy Catterton, was brought in, and he signed a final decree that she did not agree to, and the decree left out a lot of money that she was due. Navarez then signed another order, possibly trying to cover up for mistakes that are made with the first divorce decree. So he came in and signed his own order, which is pretty questionable. We're going to call her Sherry. She was not allowed to attend her child's high school graduation, and she's currently in hiding. So the stuff that happened to her, again, was she ever a bad parent? Was there anything that could be proven that showed that she abused and neglected? And it's important to say provable evidence, right? Not just one side saying, I don't think my child feels safe. I don't feel safe around. None of that should be considered at all, but it is always used as a basis for these TROs and for harmful litigation. So that's her case. There's another one. I'm going to use a fake name for her as well. We're very early into researching this case. But she's been trying to get divorced for 6 years. and her husband, it's not even ex-husband because she can't get divorced, is very wealthy. And so the ex-husband has a lot of money at stake that he could lose if this divorce goes through. And so who benefits in that situation when Jesse Navarro refuses to sign the divorce decree?
The lawyer and the husband.
Yeah, so it's helping them. And so what we're trying to do is to figure out how is it that they were able to manipulate this system to the point where she's having to work menial day labor. I believe she's, if I remember right, I believe she's even, actually, I'm not sure if she pays child support, but often in these situations, you have these really weird situations where the mother who is now destitute is ordered to pay child support to the wealthy ex, which is just mind blowing. But she's trying to raise, their child together. She can barely support herself because, a lot of these women were stay-at-home moms, right?
Yeah.
So that they were doing what they thought they were supposed to do in that relationship. And once that relationship is severed, they no longer have the money to defend themselves and become easy victims in this court system.
Yes.
And so her attorney recently stepped down, not because she would say he was a good attorney, but he was so frustrated. Imagine if you're trying to get a divorce decree signed for 6 years. And
6 years?
Yes, 6 years. Something as straightforward as a divorce, which happens a lot in this country, right? It's not an uncommon procedure. And he just was frustrated. And this court allowed that attorney to remove himself from the case, which is again harmful to her because now she has no attorney to defend herself. So it's kind of a pattern that we see in this case. And so we have a lot of situations like this. I want to mention my friend Stephen May. His father lost his inheritance, wrong word, his life savings, simply trying to go through a divorce process in this court. And there was a hearing that was held on the matter that they never notified him of, and they said he was present at. And it was the day 2 years ago. Do you remember that big pileup on I-35 where several people died?
Yeah.
So apparently at 9 a.m. on that day, during this horrible blizzard, there was a hearing. It's very unlikely that there was a hearing. And this final order was signed. And there was even language put into the order that said, if you dare to appeal this, there will be civil penalties. So there were things written into the final order that were intimidating Stephen's father from pursuing appealing, which is our right, to appeal any order. So, I mean, there's just a lot of these stories, and people keep coming out in the 231st in particular with these stories. And some of these we've published, some of them we will publish. But I'm definitely looking into all of these. All right, so my case. So I want to just, it's hard to understand, what happened and what is happening to me without understanding my role as a journalist.
Yes.
And anytime you or I have to interact with the justice system, it's an opportunity for the government to exact retribution on us, right?
Yes.
It sucks, because I can't help if someone brings up family custody case against myself, or the bogus harassment charges that I was found out guilty of. A lot of the stuff that that you've dealt with as well. It just allows them to have control over us. But I think this court found a way to turn my own attorney against me because this story is just mind blowing. So it should have been a pretty straightforward case because my son lives in Ohio,
Yes.
but the case is in Tarrant County because I was married in Tarrant County. My son grew up first couple of years of his life in Tarrant County. We divorced in Tarrant County. And so this decree has guided my son for 10 plus years. It's worked fine. The decree allows him to live with his mother anywhere in the United States, continental United States, right?
Yeah.
And so it's been working fine. And then she just decided that she's going to try to get this case removed to Ohio so she could pursue these false allegations against me. Pretty clearly, making it very difficult for me to defend my parental rights if they were taken out of Tarrant County. I have to go to Ohio, fly to Ohio for hearings. So probably cancel hearings, and all that whole strategy is well known. If you want to sever someone's parental rights, these are the kind of situations where an ethical judge should look at this situation and say, no, you're not going to use this system just for your own personal goals. It's not an easy thing to remove a case from the state. You can transfer cases within Texas pretty easily. So if I lived with my son in Tarrant County and he moved to Harris County and I moved to Bexar County or whatever, it should no longer stay in Tarrant County. That's reasonable. We'll transfer the case.
Yeah.
But for the case for Texas to give up jurisdiction of its case is a really big deal, and there's a very high bar. And in order to meet this bar, this court was able to fabricate a lot of information to make it look like I was okay with them releasing jurisdiction when I absolutely am not, and I'm fighting this thing, and I'll be fighting it this Thursday at 9 a.m., and I'll be fighting it on appeal for obvious reasons, because this has allowed my ex to keep my son from me. So she has obstructed 3 visits. Christmas, he didn't come. April, when I visited, I wasn't allowed to see him. And then he's supposed to be here right now for summer, and he's not here because she's not allowing it. And I placed the blame of this behavior on the 231st for encouraging her aberrant behavior. This court knew that she obstructed the Christmas vacation,
Yes.
and rewarded her by signing this order that I'm going to read, because this order is just completely fabricated. The information on here is, go look at it really quickly. It cites a date where there was no hearing, as basically it says, on this date we agreed, and it's I found out later that they were saying that I agreed, through this date, which I absolutely again did not. That my son has no more relatives living in the state of Texas. And based on that, and again, based on what they're saying is my agreement, which I did not, they signed this order. And again, I'm fighting this order. I'm going to have a motion for a new trial this Thursday. So the idea that, you read the bottom, he has no more relationships in the state of Texas. Well, in the
Do
state of,
you pay child support?
I do.
So it doesn't make sense, because right here, the first word, look,
Mm-hmm.
and substantial evidence is no longer available concerning the child's care.
Okay, yeah, let's dig into that. So Isaac visits every time that he's allowed to under this decree. So he has a lot of care that happens in the state of Texas. I live here. His grandparents live here, both my parents. His great grandparents live here. His great aunt, great uncle, cousin once removed lives here, and a network of friends that he's enjoyed over the past 10 years all live in the state of Texas. So it's like they're saying that everyone Isaac knows has left the state of Texas. They've all vanished, and Isaac doesn't know anyone in Texas. If Isaac takes a flight to Texas, no one's going to greet him at the airport, because there's absolutely no relationships left in the state of Texas.
Why wouldn't you go?
Do what?
Why wouldn't you go to the airport and pick them up?
Well, I'm just saying that the court is creating this fabricated narrative.
No, I know what they're
Sorry.
saying, but I'm asking you, why wouldn't you go? Like, wouldn't that be common sense?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if he does come
Mhm.
on a visit,
Mhm.
you're his dad.
They clearly know the father lives here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but see, what they're trying to say is basically you don't exist,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Correct.
And that's impossible,
Mm-hmm.
right? If their argument is if he comes to Texas, there's nobody going to be here to pick him up. And that's the most absurd thing I've heard, because you're his father. You would know that he's going to be there, what time he's going to be there, and would you not be there to pick him up?
100%.
So my thing is, how can these people sit here and, because what they're doing is what I say in my criminal issues, is they misinterpret and misrepresentate the actual words. They use words like, we're going to modernize, or that's not what it means. Like, you don't understand, because
Mhm.
it's like, I'm the judge, we're the prosecutors, and in family courts cases, I'm a judge, and then, because I never understood the part, right? I don't mean to
Go ahead, no,
knock
please.
you
I
off
appreciate
track.
the input.
And it to me, it seems like whenever situations like this happens, to where they try to disconnect, like, basically, okay, put it in simple terms. Would they do it reverse? Like,
Go
my
ahead.
thing would be, could you go over there,
Mhm.
right, to Ohio right now and tell her, hey, give me my kid, I'm burning off with him. It's my summer. Would she allow that?
Well, That's an interesting situation because right now he's supposed to be here.
No, that's my
Yeah.
question.
Mhm.
Since you're legally the one, because I understood certain terms when they
Mhm.
start talking about this. Since you're the one that's legally in custody, right? Okay, that's how they say it, right?
Yeah. Yes, right now, this
And
moment.
she's the one violating it,
Hmm.
right? So how is it that you're not able to go to Ohio and like say for instance, if he came over here and you said he's not going back, if she was to say I'm coming 2 days early, I don't care. She would be able to call this dude Jesse and be like, he doesn't want to give him to me, so Jesse's gonna call the marshals, send him to your crib, and if you don't give up your kid, you're going to jail.
There's a double standard between fathers and mothers, which I think you're kind of hinting at.
Yes.
That there's an undue burden put on fathers who don't have full-time custody of their children to have to fight for every little minute they have. And the women, and it could be the opposite, right? It could be the father that has full-time custody, so it's not a gender thing.
Yeah, that's
but
what I was
the burden
pointing
is
out,
put
like
on
both
the
sides.
father who doesn't have primary, custody of the child.
So it's the person that doesn't have primary custody is the majority of the ones that are getting done this way.
Oh yeah, they're the
That's
ones that
the
get
issue.
burned in these situations.
Okay,
correct?
so
They're
it's more
exchanges.
basically the one that has like permanent, and some of them, like you were saying, stating earlier, they get it by false accusations and like treacherous means, right? Like basically lying and getting cool with a lawyer that's cool with a judge, and basically the lawyer donates money to the judge. So there's like rub my back and my back. Look, like the example I gave,
Mhm.
how three people, two of them are poor, one has money in the court system. The two guys that have court appointed lawyers are going to be forced to take a plea deal, and the one that has $20,000 is going to walk free.
Yeah.
So they're doing the same thing in family court, but what I don't like is there's no one saying anything about it. Not parents like us,
Mhm.
like us that are hearing these stories.
Mhm.
Like that's why I'm putting focus on the family court now, right? Because I feel that these parents lose hope,
Mhm.
they lose their courage, they lose the fight inside of them because they feel like no one's listening, no one cares. Because it's the way they do us, it's easy to manipulate people to believe you're a bad person if they have the right people saying it.
Mhm.
If they get these elegant speakers or just a person that's official.
Mhm.
Get what I'm saying?
Yeah, they're called court-appointed
Moderators.
counselors, or they have all these people that will come in and they'll testify, and that's a whole, that could be its own kind of episode as well, because that's not always trustworthy as
No.
well. But it's certainly not based on evidence, which is a really bizarre.
Yeah,
thing.
that was my
Yeah.
point.
Mhm.
Like basically it's just based on I hate you, so
Mhm.
I'm gonna still punish you even though we're not
Yeah.
together. And that's dead wrong because look, the reason I have an issue with this is because I grew up in a single parent home,
Mhm.
right? And CPS wasn't even a thing back in the day. Like it was literally, if there was abuse, you told the teacher would call the cop would go to your house and
Mhm.
arrest your parent and take them to jail.
Mhm.
You would be put into foster care. It
Mhm.
wasn't CPS, it was called foster care,
Mhm.
right? So we ended up in foster care, and my mom had to fight to get us back because of what my father did.
Okay.
You get what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So I guess what I'm saying, it got worse
Mhm.
than getting better,
Mhm.
right? Because now it seems like if I don't like my wife, right, and I don't want her to have nothing, as long as I got money, she's not gonna have nothing but a hard time.
Correct.
And vice versa.
Mhm.
The wife, if she ended up being like getting cool with a lawyer, it goes that way too. So, and I'm glad you explained it to me because now I understand. It's the custodial parents that are having more pull because they're the ones that everything goes towards. Because what I've learned is they also get everything that comes with the child, which is like care. Don't they get like it comes out of the
Child support.
exactly
Yeah. I pay child support too.
for the medical insurance.
I pay for his insurance, correct?
For if I'm not, I don't know if he goes to a private school, but if they go to private school, if they're in certain sports or programs, it comes out of you.
Mhm.
And are they able to like come, let's say 2, 3 months from now, and you get recognized and you get to a better position, and they end up giving you a raise. Could she come
Oh,
back
yes,
and
absolutely.
say, "Hey, I want more money now because he got a raise"?
Absolutely, 100%.
That's crazy.
And if I lost my job, I would still have to pay child support. Like they're very
That's
quick to raise it, but it's almost impossible to get them to lower
to
it.
lower
Yeah,
due
yeah,
to your circumstances.
yeah.
So it's never based on your circumstance. It's based on how much you piss the judges and lawyers off.
And child
don't
support,
answer
no.
that.
I want to say child support really quickly helps fund the courts through the Title 4D program. So by forcing, basically, what these courts do, they pick a winner and a loser. Because you need a loser to force them to pay child support. Because
Yes.
the child support allows them to get federal grant money through the Title 4D money. And Tarrant County gets about $3 billion a year. I've seen the open records requests. And so the idea of child support, you think, well, it's great for the child. It's a money make. It's another way for the courts to make money.
Yeah.
And you could have a situation.
So how much actually goes to the child? What percent?
We don't know because you give the money straight to the mother, so we don't know how much. There's no accounting that's done. We don't, in any of these situations.
Because I think it should be the same way they do with the TANF and the food stamp, the EBT cards. You know how they're
I
starting
agree.
to say that now
Agree.
they have to prove
Mhm.
that everything on there is actually getting, like they have to prove that the money they're wasting is going towards the clothes, the food, or whatever for the child.
Mhm.
They're no longer able to go spend the money to go get hair, nails, and clothes for them to go out.
Mhm.
And I think that should be something that we should be trying to get implemented in family courts. Because if you're not showing proof that you're actually giving the money to your child, because to me, if you're doing this to begin with based on how you feel about the person, I don't think you should have it.
Mhm.
You get what I'm saying? So to be able to increase, and then it's just weird to me. And
Yes.
I mean, I don't have children.
Mhm.
That's why I'm joining this fight. Because like I've said it over and over again, and I'll keep saying it. This city, anybody that speaks up or defends himself and try to say, hold on, I'm getting done wrong, they choose 3 ways to target them, right? They get cops to give them false allegations, false charges. They get CPS to get involved on accusations and lies, right? And then they try to get people to say that you're crazy,
Mhm.
right? So I say the middle one to go for parents,
Mhm.
because I've actually been told, and they've reached out to me to tell me that they've involved CPS because now they don't have to provide a lawyer or attorney for the child because CPS is now the moderator.
Mhm.
They're speaking for the child's interest because in Texas, the child automatically has to have a lawyer representing him as well. Because you get one, she gets one, and there's supposed to be one for the child.
It's an ad litem attorney that they often appoint.
No.
Yeah.
And the only time that they're able to bypass this or loophole it, as I call it,
Mhm.
is if CPS is involved.
Mhm.
That's the only way, because other than that, then who's speaking for the best interest of the child? Because your lawyer is speaking for your best interest, her lawyer is speaking for hers. So where's the people speaking for the kid's best interest? That's my thing, right? And that's why I want to get involved in this, because I don't completely understand it. And I'm going to go sit in courts,
Mhm.
in family courts, and sit there and observe it. I'm going to take my little paper, write my little notes. I know how to sit in the court and observe, I know how to be quiet. I just don't like when they act crazy with me and I don't get to say nothing.
Mhm.
But see, I'm not in the court for me. So now I get to actually observe what actually happens,
Mhm.
And I think that being able to understand that, I will be able to expose it better.
Mhm.
Because I'm going to do the same way that I do with what I've experienced, how far I went. I went damn near, I went everywhere that gave money or was in charge of every part of Fort Worth.
Mhm.
I went to the Water District, the Tarrant Appraisal District, Commissioner's Court, City Hall, and it's like they all don't care about us. And it's like weird because it's money over people, institutions over communities. And it's weird to me and it bothers me. And that's why I'm speaking up and I'm willing to, while I'm doing this with the criminal court, help family court. Because, like I said, they can't attack me. I do not have children. I'm not crazy. Good luck with that. And I know how they're going to lie on me. So I'm going to catch it and they're going to get in trouble for it.
Yeah.
So good luck with all that. And I've experienced now reading your publication about how dirty the judges and DAs are. So now I'm well prepared, even better. So I know, and this is my point, right? I want people not to feel hopeless, not to feel scared. And if I have to be the one that comes out there and says, hey, you don't have to worry about it, man, I got you. You know, nothing's going to happen, right?
Mhm.
That's why I encourage other people that do the same thing I do to help people in family courts. Because a lot of us aren't intimidated by what they're saying because we actually know our rights of being in these public spaces. We know that judges only can issue rules in that courtroom. So as long as I'm not loud, yelling, or actually disrupting the process of the court, they can't really say nothing to me.
Mhm.
And I'm willing to challenge it where most people won't because they're dealing with it.
Oh, and they're intimidated by
Exactly.
judges. They
Exactly.
fear them.
And I'm not.
Mhm.
I've dealt with some of the shadiest ones. You know, some of them aren't here no more. You know what I'm saying? And at first I was intimidated because I didn't understand it.
Mhm.
You know, I didn't get it until I actually started reading what they were doing and actually catching how they were getting me. And what helped me is where they thought they were hurting me is when they would lock me up. And in there we have tablets that where you can look up case laws. So they arrest me, I look up all the cases that shows where those cases got overturned and then the officers lost qualified immunity.
Mhm.
That's what I look for. And I'm looking the same way for family courts.
Mhm.
And that's what I'm gonna bring to families,
Yeah.
right? Because like I said, it takes certain different types of thinking and different people
Correct.
to come together that normally wouldn't to put a stop to it.
And it's okay that we think differently.
Yeah,
Because
that's
you
fine.
have your own, and I mean like your own expertise, right? You
Yeah.
have you understand case law. I understand, like I'm an expert in visiting retired judges because I've spent a
Exactly.
year. So when I see them do certain things, and when they're given open-ended assignments, when they should only have a 90-day window, and they're not giving these very clearly defined assignments, I know that that's not lawful. I know they don't follow the rules. You know, I know what to look for.
Yes.
But yeah, but we can all look at this from different angles from our background, and we catch things like you might catch something I wouldn't catch. I might notice something that you wouldn't catch.
Yeah,
You know,
vice
but
versa.
we're starting to work together. And if anyone out there's who's a judge is listening, we're starting to work together. We're connected, and
Yeah.
we have found each other. And it's even a statewide thing right now where we're
Yes.
talking to people in different groups. And if we have a question, someone in our network has the answer.
Yes.
And we're going to use this to help society. We're going to help parents who are getting pummeled right now. But you're talking about the intimidation because absolutely they will come after your kids if you go after the system. And I've talked to people who want to talk to me, but they have cases right now in the 231st or
Yes.
somewhere else, and they're terrified. And I get it. They're worried about this judge getting mad that they spoke out and just making a ruling that says you don't see it, and they will do that.
I already
So it's
know.
not an unjustified concern that these parents have, but we need to work toward a future where parents should not fear the judges. They should not live in fear of the system.
Yes.
You know.
And that's why I'm saying it's our job. It's not only our job. It's our duty to be the ones that take the big hits up,
Correct.
right?
Well,
Because we understand it better, right? And just
Yeah.
like you said right now, the whole thing I'm trying to bring awareness to is to take away the fear that they put in people.
Mhm.
You know, because I want my story to encourage people. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm not saying do it like me because I'm not a professional, you know, and I do report what happens in my neighborhood and I am a citizen
Mhm.
and that's all I've ever said. I've got labeled so many different things because they don't know what to call me.
Mhm.
You know, auditor, whatever. I don't disagree with people, but I disagree with people who use it derogatory,
Mhm.
who use it to try to belittle me or put me in a negative category. And I tried to explain, even when I started my YouTube channel, I was saying it was an investigation. My channel was an investigation into Central A, B, and the South Division, because those are the ones that did what they did to me and people in my neighborhood. Like I said, when in past interviews, they're mad because I figured out how to defend myself with the camera, and then I made a YouTube channel, and that took off. Like when they arrested me, by the next 2-3 days, it was already at thousands of views, right? And their arrogance on the next time I would film them, yeah, we don't care about your 5-6 subscribers, and they didn't even understand what they were saying. So this it irritated me and it frustrated me to normally I resort to fighting back with my hands. And I would always lose. So I had to switch it up. That's why I said I'm glad I ended up picking up that first Fort Worth Weekly. I'm glad I met Thomas Torlincasi. And I'm glad that I have went through what I went through in my life to be able to endure what they're doing to me now. Because that's the point I'm trying to make, right? They knocked the fight out of most of us. I want to be a story of encouragement to give the fight back to people. And that's what I'm saying. That's why I'm glad me and you are doing this, because this is just the beginning. I want it to be where families and parents are no longer afraid of a judge.
Correct.
And the only way to take the power away from a crappy judge is to expose them. Because I think it's about time he's famous, you know, and that's the ability that social media and anybody that doesn't maybe, and that's why I like YouTube, because right now there could be people watching from different states, and now they understand, hey, it's happening in Fort Worth,
It's happening in their states
in
too.
Texas.
Yeah. Everywhere.
So now they understand, hey, there's people coming together, hey, woo, and that's how it starts. You know, it takes 2 or 3 people to jump out there, right? And I'm glad that I'm one of them and you're one of them, because I believe that, like you were saying, there's stuff where I'm limited, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. That's what's given me a bigger avenue, because I'm not ashamed to say I don't know what you're talking about, or I don't understand it. Explain it to me, right? Because you have people that get to a certain position, and that's why I rock with you, because I haven't ran into that with you to where you're not the. I know everything. I've been doing this for 12 years, so there's nothing you can tell me that I don't know. That's what I like and admire about you, because I'm the same way, and I'm not ashamed to say I don't understand that, or I have never done that before, or I don't know, because I believe that'll open the door to knowing. And I've seen so many people like cry telling me stories, and it makes me so angry. And the only thing I can give them back is saying I'm gonna stand not behind you, beside you. And if I need to get in front of you, I will. Right? So I believe if I show people that, it'll give them, because I've met people off of YouTube that were terrorized by police. There's a couple, I think they're in Indiana, and for public safety and official misconduct. They were illegally arrested, right? The husband was beat up. The wife, the cops re-broke her spinal cord. She was literally like couldn't walk no more. Now they're walking around with 2 of the biggest YouTube channels in their state. And what I talked to them, I love when they said we wanted to stop being victims and become warriors, survivors. That made me proud to watch their growth. And that's what I'm trying to give to parents.
Yeah, in Tarrant County.
Because we all need a voice. And I'm going to show them how easy it is to put their situation on social media. Because that takes the power of them doing it in the dark and being able to continuously do it over and over again. That's why they don't want cameras in these courts. And that's why I'm glad we talked this weekend. That opened my eyes to some stuff I never knew.
Yeah.
That's why I was glad to be a part of that.
Folks are probably wondering, Tarrant County Parents organized a fundraiser for Texans for Judicial Accountability. Check out their Facebook page and website. It's a brand new nonprofit that's looking to restore accountability. They never had accountability, so there's no restoring, but they're going to force these judges to be accountable for their misconduct. And we were honored to have Manuel Mata be one of our guest speakers. And I was personally really proud that Tarrant County was the first in Texas to organize a fundraiser for this new group. And we're going to do it every year. We're going to do events maybe throughout the year.
Yeah.
I want to mention one other thing on this order, which is really interesting. Well, two other things on this order. This thing was signed on March 29th. You know what was scheduled for March 30th?
Yeah.
An evidentiary hearing on this motion. So I was preparing to defend myself, to be able to say, if they're going to make any allegations, that, no, Your Honor, my son has a lot of relations in Texas and support in Texas.
Yeah.
But I was deprived of that because he signed this order the day before the hearing. Imagine if you're on trial for murder or whatever, and the judge signs your conviction the day before your jury hearing, right? So that's what happens in the family courts. They'll just sign something before you have a chance to defend yourself. And then he went back and made up all these convoluted lies that said that I was wanting this thing signed early, and that I was basically what this was tied with was what's called an enforcement action. So my ex-wife did not allow my son to visit in December. And so the judge said, well, we're going to make her pay some money, and then I'm going to sign this order. He made it sound like I was exchanging money for jurisdiction over my case, which was absolutely bogus. She was obligated to pay for the obstructed visit in December. It wasn't like the court did me a favor by having her pay, but Jesse created this idea that because, she paid me, we're gonna wrap up soon, but they created this false narrative that A, I was okay with it, that B, I felt guilty about these false allegations. It's all signed by Jesse Navarez, and they're all complete lies, fabrications. And he signed his name to it, so he has to own up to this. These are things that he's, as a judge, signed. He can't say that he didn't know. It's on him he's the one that needs to find. If you have a finding, you need to investigate that finding. You can't just say this court finds and make up whatever you want. Again, in the 231st, they fabricate information on a daily basis, and these judges sign it. It probably happens in other courts, but I'm aware of this court, and I think that's the reason he didn't want me in the 231st. It's because I'm someone who's going to look around and say, what the hell's going on here? Yeah. So they try to boot me out, and I'm going to be fighting it, and I am willing to take the brunt of whatever they do to me, right? If the worst they can do is to terminate my visitation with my son. He's going to be 18 soon, and he can make up his own mind. And a lot of parents have it worse because they have little children who they're losing access to. So, well, Mata, thanks for your time. This is again, we're going to be doing these shows on the regular. We're going to have different guests come in and talk about their horror stories in the family court system. But this has to end.
Yes. So this is our plan. So, like I said earlier, if y'all didn't go to subscribe to Fort Worth Weekly on YouTube, go ahead and go and hit him up. That way you can see all the stories he's talking about, because it's all on there. And this is the first episode, and we're gonna have a lot more to go. So
and it's gonna be based on evidence that the courts use hearsay and lies.
We're
gonna bring in documents, and we're gonna be quoting them. None of these are not allegations. These are things that have happened. And I'm gonna put my name behind it and my reputation, and Mata's gonna put his name and reputation behind it. And we're not gonna allow anything that's false, unlike the family court system here in Tarrant County.
So appreciate y'all for tuning in and being here. And I'll thank you.
Until next time.
Yeah.